Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name is Drew, and in this channel we are studying functional anatomy, so how the body works in terms of movement particularly. And today we're studying one of my favorite muscles. I don't know why, I just kind of like it. Feels good when you train it, is the tricep brachii muscle itself. As always, we're using the app 3D for Medical. I'm just going to be showing you the surface of what you can do with this app. Super helpful. There'll be a link in the description below. I'm not affiliated with them. I don't get paid for anything like that stuff at all. I just think it's a great app. I've been using it for a long time. And I highly recommend it if you're studying anything to do with human movement and functional anatomy. So let's get right into it. I'm going to show you a new feature today that I haven't looked at in the past. We're looking at landmarks. So what you do is you're just going to highlight the triceps, and just a quick overview. Oh, got a dry throat all of a sudden. It's always the way you got to record a video, and no problem speaking all day. I mean, I've been working with clients all day, so maybe I just been speaking too much. Anyway, you guys don't care about that. Let's tell me more about anatomy. So you just select on the muscle. So we have, let's overview the muscle quickly. So we've got here the lateral head of the tricep, meaning that it's on the lateral aspect of the body or the outside of the arm. Then this one is the long head because it's on the longest part of the muscle. And also we have underneath is the medial head of the tricep. So we've got three heads, which is where you get the word tricep, tri meaning three. Now, let's look at the coming across here, motion models. O and I. So O and I is origin and insertion. Where did this go? Come back. Here we go. So let's have a look at this feature in complete anatomy. So if I just tick on that one, for example. So insertion of the tricep brachii muscle, and gives you a nice description there. So essentially where it's purple is where the muscle, where the tricep tendon attaches onto the bone. And this part of the elbow here, this is the ulnar bone. And this part here is called the olecranon of the ulna. Okay, so that tip of the elbow right here, that's where the tricep muscle is attaching to. Then if you look at the origin of the lateral head of the tricep, so the purple here, so the tricep muscle itself is going to attach onto this part of the bone. So quite high up next to the humerus. So if you zoom out, it's in the top third of the humerus itself. And that's on the superior to the radial groove. Superior meaning above. So the radial groove is this kind of, if we look down here, this groove coming up through here, I believe. And so it's in that kind of top third there. And then lastly, we have the origin of the medial head of the triceps is this full part on the back of the humerus itself. So the actual tricep muscle essentially attaches onto the whole back of the arm. So it's not just coming off the top of the shoulder and then down to the elbow tip, it's the whole of the arm. And that's the same thing with like the hamstrings and the quads. Essentially, you have one big continuous kind of connection on the bone to the muscle, or the muscle to the bone. So if we go back, so we looked at it again. So we have then the origin of the long head of the tricep brachii. So if we look here, again, coming to the olecranon process, looking at the lateral head, where on the humerus here again, that middle third. And here, the original long head of the tricep brachii is on the actual shoulder blade, the scapula, okay, on the inferior glenoid tubercle of the scapula. So the glenoid is the shoulder socket, so that kind of flat, smooth surface in on the shoulder blade itself. The glenoid tubercle is this kind of rough bit of bone through here. So infraglenoid, so infra meaning below or under, glenoid tubercle, so this part here. So it's not right on the edge of it. It's off the shoulder blade, and just below here you're going to have teres major and teres minor as well. So you've got some other muscles attaching along the kind of lateral edge of the scapula. And then I wonder if we can see the medial head. And that's the medial head there attaching to the back. So essentially what we have is the tricep muscle attaching onto nearly probably, what would you say, 4/5 of the humerus. The three heads of the muscle form a big tendon. So the Tricpes Brachii tendon, and that tendon then attaches onto the elbow. So classically, there's a big argument in like the gym, for example, can you isolate the different heads of the triceps? So to understand that, we need to look at motion. So let's go to motion, model, cross-section. Where is it? Treatment conditions. For some reason, it just disappeared. Oh, because you actually have to highlight the muscle. Okay, let's have a look. A bit of my coffee. So when you come to the motion section, what I recommend you do is just fade all, and that'll kind of fade out all the other big muscles. And then we can look at the individual muscles that are at play here. And so here we're looking at the long head of the tricep. Remember, it's coming to the ulnar process, but it's also coming off the shoulder blade. So one key concept with the triceps is to kind of just appreciate that it's a shoulder blade muscle or a scapular based muscle as well. So it's what we call a multi-joint muscle. It's going to affect movement across the glenohumeral joint, so the shoulder joint, the scapula, because it's attaching to the scapula, and also to the elbow. So there's 3 joints that this tricep has an influence on particularly. Now, you might say, you get kind of like super technical and pedantic, so like this muscle technically maybe not crossing the joint that way, but it's definitely going to affect the glenohumeral joint. All right. So let's look at what it does. So long head of the Tricep Brachii, shoulder extension and hyperextension. So what we're looking at here is, if we go from the side, so this is a side view. So here you're in an anatomical position, so neutral. So if you're like put an angle measurement device down here, like a goniometer, you're looking at the angle through here. We're probably at about, so let's say that's 0 degrees there. So, or 180 degrees, depending how you want to measure it. So if the arm comes behind you, so here that's hyperextension. So that's pulling your arm behind you. So anytime you bring the arm behind, the tricep is going to be really, really important. Now, for that to happen, the shoulder blade needs to move back as well. So if we come back, so as we come down here and want to neutral, so if that's neutral there, let's see if I got it guessed it right. No, I've got a bit more to go. That's neutral there. So the shoulder blade's kind of sitting in a neutral position. If we keep pulling the arm back behind us into hyperextension, okay, so we have to get that external, that additional tricep movement. And so that's going to come through the rhomboids and through the middle trapezius and through the latissimus dorsi here as well. So anytime you're trying to get tricep work, particularly going behind the back, you have to have lats involved, you have to have rhomboids involved, you have to have middle trapezius involved, and there'll be deltoids here involved as well to pull that whole shoulder blade back. So one way to kind of work triceps is to think about when you're doing your exercises is to get the arm behind the body and pull the shoulder blade back as you do it. Where people go wrong in the tricep work is the shoulder stays pinned forward. So when they try to bring the arm behind them from this position to here, the humerus is actually orientated forward, and then it dumps the shoulder blade into your neck. So you want the shoulder blade back and down, and then you can pull it back and move the arm, shoulder away from the ear. Okay. So that's where all that tight kind of pec major and pec minor and biceps come into play here. Now, one of the best ways to do that, if you can flip it around, if I can turn it around, well, let me do it. No, it's not going to let me do it. But if you think about doing a bent over row kickback, dumbbell kickback, so you want to get the elbow straight and then behind. So let me explain that a bit better when we go to elbow extension. So if you look at the other part of the elbow, is opposite of the bicep curl is elbow extension. So opening up the elbow so the arm is straight. And that's all tricep work here. So the three heads working together to get the elbow into full extension. So that's elbow flexion and elbow extension right there. Your degree of elbow extension is going to be really dependent on the anatomy of the olecranon, so it fitting into the elbow itself in there. Can you see it from this side? So if I fade all that help? Yeah. So the olecranon is it goes into the humerus there in that big fossa, and it's basically like a hook. And as you straighten your arm, the olecranon kind of compacts or connects to the humerus. And depending on your anatomy, once you get the bone on the bone, you can't actually straighten the elbow any further. So it's going to be slightly different for everyone. And some people, like my partner, she has a hyperextending elbow. So where she straightens her arm comes down and behind more. So she kind of has, instead of going to a nice kind of low extension, she goes into a hyperextension. And that just kind of creates some instability issues around her elbow and the shoulder that she needs to do a bit of work around. But she can try and find with it. It's good. It's no big deal. So we need to be able to get the triceps really, really strong so they can get the arms out behind you. Okay. Now, in terms of a push-up or a bench press, something like that, when you're doing a pressing move, as you're coming out of the bench press or the push-up, the arm goes straight. So then the triceps are helping to straighten the arm, which helps to give that pressing away movement. So that's why the triceps and the chest are often trained together, because they complement each other. They're kind of co-contracting muscles in that regard. Other thing to consider too is if your biceps are too tight on the front, if the biceps are super tight, that'll inhibit or weaken neurologically your triceps, and then you won't get full elbow extension. So people who overdevelop their biceps and don't do tricep work will create a muscular imbalance, which is really a lot of neurological kind of stuff that's happening, because the tricep will be reciprocally inhibited by the bicep muscle. So too much development of the bicep neurologically weakens the tricep. So one way we fix tricep issues particularly is that we do active release technique on the bicep. So you contract, relax it. Okay. Then you got to release the tight tissue first. If you try to start with the muscle that's super weak on the reciprocal opposite side, it won't have enough kind of power to override the really tight tissue. So you got to release the tight tissue first. Then you got to facilitate the neural drive back into this muscle by then first developing the muscle to contract. So creating a kind of like a neuromuscular mind connection. So teach people how to feel the back of the arm, how to squeeze the muscle, how to contract it, and then slowly develop up that strength. So then you get this kind of balance between front and the back. Super, super important. Now, one big question with triceps is, as I was saying before, how do you isolate it? So really there's only two movements of the tricep. There's at the elbow, so where you keep your shoulders really stable and you're just working at the elbow. So think you're kind of your classic kind of standing cable tricep extension, something like that, or you kick back. But if you do that just to here, that will get your kind of your lateral head and your medial head, and you're definitely going to get some long head as well, but you're not taking it to its full range, so you're missing out on that kind of long head tricep extension. So what you want to do whenever you're doing your tricep work is to carry to full extension at the elbow and then at your shoulder. So for example, if I was doing a cable extension here, you would pull the arm down so the elbow is close to the ribs here. Then you would straighten the elbow out and then you would pull the arm behind you to get that kind of hyperextension, get the full tricep contraction working. Okay, so that's where people often forget the tricep work, is they concentrate on the elbow and they forget the shoulder piece as well. Now, you can do tricep work overhead. So if you come all the way up here, and this is how you stretch the tricep as well. So in this position, you can still hinge the arm tricep at the elbow joint here, no problem at all. Okay, as long as you're not too tight in the lats or in the actual tricep long head to restrict the arm overhead. Okay, once you can kind of get the arm overhead, then you can kind of do over the head extensions. So they will be a bit of a combination of both the long head and medial and lateral head per se there. So you can do overhead tricep extensions, no problem at all. Or anything like you're thinking about a press, getting above the head in any kind of pressing move. So that's the other big combination, your shoulder pressing movement. So anything where you're pushing above your head, that requires tricep extension to get the elbow straight. You don't want to press something up your head with like a flexed elbow. You want to get the elbow straight. So you can lock that elbow and then you can take the weight through this huge kind of scapulothoracic shoulder region there. So that's part of the set. So when you press up above the head, you don't press into a shrug, you press up and then you set the shoulder down. And that way all the lats and the rhomboids, the traps can kind of stabilize the shoulder while you're holding something above your head. So that's an important technique thing to learn from you. If your personal trainer doesn't know how to teach you that, like get a new personal trainer, like that's essential. Like if you don't know how to get that kind of trap set down from overhead, you shouldn't be pressing stuff above head. You're just going to like jam your neck up. You don't want that. Okay. So you can do your overhead tricep work, and that's how you would stretch the tricep. You would bring this hand down to your shoulder. So just on the shoulder, pull the arm back, and so you get that tricep stretched down through here. Now, the other thing, a question you often get asked is in terms of grips. So whether you're doing like a supine grip, a pronated grip, or a neutral grip, how does that affect the triceps? And there's a lot of kind of bro-y kind of science around that stuff, but essentially because they all come down to the same area, okay, and the ulcronane process itself doesn't really have any ability to turn within the humerus, within that fossa, you can't really change the angle of this too much in terms of direction. So from this grip to this grip to this grip, what's going to be happening there is that it's more about the position of the radius and where that is and the tension it's going to place on the biceps. And that's going to kind of give you some more stability around the joint. So if your palm's kind of out, that joint's really free to move. But if you kind of like come into neutral or in a supinated grip, that rolling of the radius around kind of stabilizes and just makes that joint a lot more stricter to move through. Okay. That's why like a tricep push-up is quite challenging, because it's going to really stabilize the joint. And then when a joint's really stabilized and like it's not moving around too much, then the work gets really concentrated into the line of pull. So then it will depend then on where you are gripping and where you're pulling. So if you think about the line of pull, if all these muscles are contracting evenly through here, as they pull back, the whole arm gets pulled. But if you have your arms slightly out to the side, you might feel a little bit more on the inside, it might feel a little more on the outside. So you can kind of play around with the different kind of positions, but really the two things that you really want to concentrate is just getting your elbow straight and then getting your arm behind your body to here. So to hyperextension. So get your elbow straight and then get it behind your body, and you're going to get full tricep work there. And then you can play around with the different kind of grip positions as well. It does feel different. Like if you do tricep kickbacks in a pronated grip and then like a neutral grip. So like when you kick back, the thumb goes down, or towards the thumb going out, you will feel the muscle contract differently. Like there's definitely a different sensation to it. Whether or not that's actually you isolating different parts, heads of the triceps, or whether or not because you're bringing your arm behind the body, you're getting a full contraction of all three heads to their maximal. I suspect it's probably something a bit like that. And there's that teres minor muscle that I was talking about as well. Okay, so that's really the tricep, a pretty straightforward muscle. Nothing too complicated about the triceps there. Often overlooked. If you're doing any, because everyone's got their postural problems, we're all kind of slouched forward and hunched a little bit, forward flex. That means that our upper back typically tend to be a little bit weaker posturally. So making sure you target triceps is really, really important, just to kind of for that postural, kind of keeping that arm, shoulder blade back. Because if you're training triceps correctly, you're training this kind of rowing scapular movement through here. So if we look again, and I'll keep banging on about it, but it's just so important. I see all that shoulder blade movement that's happening through there. So this is shoulder flexion reaching up. Here you go, shoulder flexion reaching up. This is shoulder flexion. See how that shoulder blade has to move. Okay, we want to train that. You want to train that shoulder blade. So when I'm teaching clients how to do arm work, more advanced, that's a nice angle there. See how you've got that space there, and it slides along the ribs. Think of the rib cage as like it's a cage, it's a circular cage. And then if you look at the kind of the concave nature of the shoulder blade itself, it rolls around the ribs itself. So the movement's not linear, it's not straight. There's a circular kind of movement to the joints. So because we've all got a concave and a convex surface, they're all kind of like spinning or hinging or sliding on these smooth circular surfaces. All the joints are like that. There's no straight line, flat joint surfaces at all in the body. They're all got these concave, convex surfaces, particularly the big motion ones here. So when you're doing your training, you want to think in terms of circles. All right. Okay, circles. It's a bit of a hard thing to wrap your head around. So think as well, the head of the actual shoulder joint is a ball that sits in a shallow socket. So it's a ball socket. So as you're moving your arm up, that is spinning in that socket. So that's a circular movement. Okay. And that allows some of the kind of the straightness, if you will. But if you really look closely and you pay attention, they will come in arcs. All the movements are in arcs. Okay. And when you think about the ribs, so as you're breathing in, the ribs are expanding to facilitate air coming into the lungs. So that's going to change the position just purely by breathing in or out. That changes the position. So you don't even need to move your arm. So if you just keep your arm there, if you breathe in or out, each rib is going to basically open up. And so without even moving your shoulder, the shoulder blade will lift up with it. So then an inhalation creates a slight shoulder elevation. So if you follow the breathing technique with the movement, so as you lift up, breathe in, because the natural inhalation creates a natural expansion of the lungs, which creates a natural lift going upwards. So breathing in is up, and then exhale, stabilize. If you try to exhale as you push up, you can do it, but it kind of doesn't feel natural. So when we talk about respiration and breathing mechanics down the track, which is one of my goals, we're going to talk about how to train the body via really a deep understanding of breathing mechanics. So when you breathe correctly, I mean, look at all this stuff in here. So lungs are all in here, inhale, exhaling. That's changing all this shape here. And that's going to be changing the lumbar shape, which will change the pelvis position, which changes the shoulder blade position. So it all moves together. So when I'm practicing Tai Chi, for example, and I'm doing like cloud hands, it's not just the arms moving, it's the entire body moving together, but the center of the movement comes from the breath. Okay, so from how the diaphragm is moving. So when we get to that, which is what I'm really building up to, then we'll look at movement, how it interacts and relates to each other. But I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit because sometimes I get carried away. Could be the caffeine. So enough for today. That's the triceps. Great muscle. Love training triceps. Best exercises to train triceps is tricep push-ups if you know how to do them properly, tricep kickbacks, overhead tricep extensions, and then any pressing. I particularly like a kettlebell rack press because you get so much great tricep work in there. A classic yoga down dog chaturanga, amazing, great tricep work, and just great for posture. As always, if you like the video, if you appreciate the content, you know, all my only ask is like, share, always comments, any questions, please drop them down in the comment section below, and we'll see you for the next one, where I think I'll probably do the latissimus dorsi next. I already did it once, but then the computer I was working on died and I lost the video. So I think we're about due for lats, because when we do lats, then we can do teres minor and major, and that will basically complete the whole shoulder. It's been a while, but we got there. Okay, so stay tuned for that one. See you in the next video.